My name is Aurora Vance. I am 30 years old, and I live in a quiet suburban home on Oak Street that I worked hard to buy on my own. I was sitting in a high-stakes corporate meeting in Denver when my phone buzzed against the hardwood table. I tried to ignore it. I am a professional and I needed to focus. But then it buzzed again, and again. I glanced down. The notification on the screen was simple, but it made my stomach drop. Motion detected. Living room. That was impossible. I live alone. I was 2 states away. I slid my phone into my lap and opened the security camera app. My heart stopped. There, standing inside the sanctuary I had built with my own money, were my parents and my younger brother Tanner. They weren't just visiting. Tanner was holding a sledgehammer. My father was holding a tape measure against my hydroponic garden wall, the one thing in that house that brought me peace. I turned the volume up just enough to hear them. "We can knock this wall down by tonight," Tanner said, pointing at my plants. "It's perfect for the content studio." "Are you sure, honey?" my dad asked, looking at the structural beam. Then my mother spoke, delivering the sentence that ended our relationship forever. She waved her hand dismissively at my home. "Just do it. Aurora won't make a scene, she never does." I stared at the tiny screen. My hand didn't shake. My breathing didn't hitch. A cold, hard calm settled over me. She was right about one thing. I wouldn't make a scene. I was going to make a war. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Aurora Vance. I am 30 years old. I closed the security app on my phone. But the image of Tanner holding that sledgehammer was burned into my retinas. My hands were trembling, not from cold, but from a rage so hot it felt like fever. I was sitting in the back of a taxi heading to the Denver airport, but my mind was already back in my living room, watching them plan the destruction of my life. I needed to do something. I couldn't just sit there and stew in my anger for a 3-hour flight. I needed facts. I needed ammunition. I pulled my laptop out of my bag. The taxi hit a bump, and the computer jostled on my knees, but I steadied it. I opened a blank spreadsheet. I stared at the white grid for a moment, the cursor blinking at me. I named the file the ledger. It was time to look at the truth. For years, I had told myself lies. I told myself I was a good sister. I told myself I was a supportive daughter. I told myself that families help each other, and since I was the one with the corporate job and the steady income, it was my duty to help. But looking at that security footage, hearing my mother say, "Aurora won't make a scene," shattered those lies. They didn't see me as a helper. They saw me as a bank account. I started typing. I went back 5 years. That was when Tanner had decided he was going to be an influencer. I remembered the first big ask. He had come to me with big, shiny eyes, talking about a camera that would change his career. Item 1. Sony Alpha Camera and Lens Kit. Date, August 12, 2020. Cost, $3,200. I remembered that day. I had just gotten a bonus at work. I wanted to put it into my retirement fund. But my mom had called me. She said, "Aurora, your brother has such talent. He just needs the right tools. Don't you want to see him succeed? Or do you want him to struggle forever?" She made it sound like if I didn't buy the camera, his failure was my fault. So I bought it. He used it for 2 months, then got bored and said he needed a drone instead. Item 2, DJI drone package. Date, November 2020. Cost, $1,500. I typed it in. The numbers looked stark in black and white. Then there was the emergency rent incident of 2021. Tanner had moved into a luxury apartment he couldn't afford because he said the lighting was better for his brand. 3 months in, he was facing eviction. My dad had called me that time. He was crying. My dad never cries. He said, "Aurora, they're going to throw your brother on the street. We don't have the cash right now. We just need a bridge loan. He'll pay you back when his sponsorship money comes in." I paid the rent. I paid the late fees. I paid the lease break fee when he inevitably moved out a month later. Item 3, rent and lease break fees. Date, March 2021. Cost, $6,800. He never paid me back. The sponsorship money turned out to be a box of free energy drinks. The list went on. I scrolled through my bank statements, cross-referencing dates. The flight attendant came by and asked if I wanted a drink. I didn't even look up. I just kept typing. There were the car repairs for his old Jeep. There were the business investments for a clothing line that never printed a single shirt. There were the plane tickets for him to go to networking events in Miami and Los Angeles, which were really just parties. Item 14. Miami trip networking. Date, July 2022. Cost, $2,400. Each time I gave the money, there was a specific script. My mother would say, "He's trying so hard." My father would say, "Family supports family." And Tanner would say, "I've got you, sis. Once I make it big, I'm buying you a house." I already had a house. The house they were currently breaking into. I typed faster. My fingers flew across the keys. I added the grocery bills I paid when they forgot their wallets. The phone bill I was still paying for Tanner because he was on my family plan. The insurance payments. I got to the most recent big one, 3 months ago. Tanner said he was in legal trouble over a copyright dispute. He needed a lawyer or he was going to get sued for thousands. I panicked for him. I transferred the money within an hour. Item 28, legal fees. Date, September 2025. Cost, $5,000. I later found out there was no lawsuit. He had just wanted to go to a music festival in Coachella with the VIP package. I sat back in my seat. The plane was descending now. The spreadsheet was full. I highlighted the total column and clicked sum. The number appeared in bold at the bottom. $115,450. I stared at it. $115,000. That wasn't just money. That was my life. That was my time. That was 5 years of waking up at 6 a.m., working late nights, dealing with stress, saving every penny I could. I drove a 6-year-old car. I rarely bought new clothes. I cooked at home. I did all of that to save money, and they had taken over $100,000 of it. And for what? So Tanner could play pretend, so my parents could feel like they were raising a star. The plane wheels touched the tarmac with a screech. The jolt snapped me back to the present. I closed the laptop. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't feel guilty. I felt like a fool, but I also felt clarity. The flight attendant announced our arrival. People started standing up, clicking their seatbelts open, rushing to get their bags. I stayed seated for a moment. I held the laptop bag against my chest. It felt heavy, like a weapon. They thought I was the quiet one. They thought I was the endless well they could draw from. They thought I wouldn't make a scene. They had no idea what I was bringing home to them. As I walked through the terminal, dragging my carry-on suitcase behind me, a heavy realization settled over me. It wasn't just about the money. The spreadsheet was just the physical proof, but the rot went deeper. I walked past families greeting each other at the arrival's gate. I saw a father hugging his daughter, spinning her around. I saw a mother wiping chocolate off a toddler's face. They looked happy. They looked connected. I realized then that I didn't have a family. I had a board of directors, and I was the primary investor. I thought about my hydroponic garden. It might sound silly to some people, a wall of plants growing in water and nutrients inside a house. But to me, it was everything. I built that garden 3 years ago, right after a bad breakup. I needed something to nurture. I needed something that would grow if I treated it right. Plants are simple. If you give them light and water, they grow. They don't lie to you. They don't ask for money. They don't promise to pay you back and then go to Miami. That garden was my peace. It was the one corner of the world where I had total control. I spent hours there, checking the pH levels of the water, pruning the basil and the lettuce, watching the tomatoes turn from green to red. And now, Tanner wanted to tear it down. Why? Because he needed a blank wall for his videos. And my parents agreed. That was the part that hurt the most. It wasn't Tanner's selfishness, I expected that. It was my parents' betrayal. They knew how much that garden meant to me. They had seen me tending to it. They knew it was my sanctuary. But the moment Tanner wanted it, my needs vanished. Aurora won't make a scene. My mother's voice echoed in my head again. I realized I had trained them to treat me this way. It's called fawning. I learned about it in therapy years ago, but I never thought it applied to my family. Fawning is when you try to avoid conflict by being helpful, by being agreeable, by having no needs of your own. I had spent my whole life fawning. When I was 10, and Tanner broke a vase, I cleaned it up so he wouldn't get in trouble. When I was 16, and my parents forgot to pick me up from soccer practice because they were watching Tanner's baseball game, I walked home and told them it was fine. I said I liked the exercise. When I was 25, and they borrowed my tuition money to pay off Tanner's credit card debt, I took out student loans and said I understood. I thought if I was good enough, if I was helpful enough, if I gave enough, eventually they would love me the way they loved him. I thought I was buying love, but I wasn't buying love. I was paying a tax for existing in their orbit. I was an asset to them. I was a resource. I was the safety net that allowed them to let Tanner fail over and over again without consequences. As long as Aurora was there to write the check, everything was fine. If I stopped writing checks, would they still love me? The answer was painfully clear. They were breaking into my house right now. They were destroying my property. They didn't respect me. You don't rob people you respect. You don't demolish the things that bring joy to the people you love. I stopped in the middle of the concourse. People flowed around me like a river around a rock. I took a deep breath. It was a shaky breath, but it filled my lungs. I was done being an asset. I was done being the invisible support system. The sadness evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, steel resolve. I wasn't going to the house to beg them to stop. I wasn't going to cry and ask why they were doing this. I was going to treat this like a business transaction. They had breached the contract. They had stolen assets. And now I was coming to collect. I started walking again, faster this time. My heels clicked sharply against the tile floor. I wasn't walking like a daughter going home to visit her parents. I was walking like a CEO walking into a hostile takeover. I had the ledger. I had the security footage. And I had absolutely no mercy left in my heart. I stepped out of the secure area of the airport and scanned the crowd. I wasn't expecting anyone. I usually took an Uber home. My parents never picked me up. That was a service reserved for Tanner. But then I saw her, Haley, Tanner's fiancée. She was standing near the baggage claim, looking nervous. She was wearing a baggy sweatshirt and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked pale. She was biting her thumbnail, a habit she only did when she was extremely stressed. When she saw me, her eyes widened. She rushed over, dodging a family with a cart full of luggage. "Aurora," she hissed, grabbing my arm. "We need to talk now." I was confused. "Haley, what are you doing here? Does Tanner know you're here?" "No," she said quickly, looking over her shoulder as if she expected him to pop out from behind a pillar. "He thinks I'm at work. Come on, my car is right outside." She dragged me toward the exit. The automatic doors slid open and the humid air hit me. We walked to her small sedan in silence. She popped the trunk for my bag and we got in. She didn't start the car. Instead, she reached into the back seat and grabbed a thick manila envelope. She dropped it into my lap. "What is this?" I asked. "Open it," she said. Her voice was shaking. I opened the clasp and pulled out a stack of papers. The first page was a credit report, but it wasn't Tanner's. It was my father's. I frowned. "Why do you have Dad's credit report?" "Look at the recent inquiries," Haley said. "And look at the new accounts." I scanned the page. 3 new credit cards opened in the last 6 months. Total credit limit, $50,000, all maxed out. "Okay," I said slowly. "So Dad is spending money he doesn't have. That's not new." "Aurora, look at the signatures on the applications," she said. She pulled out photocopies of the application forms. I looked at the signature at the bottom. It said Robert Vance. It looked like my dad's name. But the loop on the R was wrong. And the slant was too sharp. I knew that slant. I had seen it on birthday cards for 5 years. "That's Tanner's handwriting," I whispered. "He stole their identity," Haley said, tears starting to well up in her eyes. "He opened the cards in their names without them knowing. He intercepts the mail so they don't see the statements. He's been living off these cards for months." My stomach turned. This was fraud. This was a felony. "There's more," Haley said. She pointed to a document at the bottom of the stack. It was a lease agreement for a luxury SUV, a Range Rover. The monthly payment was $1,200. I looked at the lessee name, Aurora Vance. I felt the blood drain from my face. "I didn't sign this." "I know," Haley said. "He forged your signature last week. He used your old pay stubs he found in your home office to prove income. He's picking the car up tomorrow." I sat there, frozen. The ledger on my laptop was bad. That was $115,000 of money I had technically given him, even if under manipulation. But this was criminal. He had stolen my identity. He had stolen our parents' identity. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked Haley. "You're marrying him." Haley let out a sob. She wiped her face with her sleeve. "I'm not anymore. I found these in his desk yesterday. I confronted him and he laughed. He said it didn't matter because you guys owe him. He said he's the brand and you're just the funding." She looked at me, her eyes red and raw. "Aurora, he's a monster. He's going to ruin all of you. He's already ruining your house right now. He told me he's tearing down that garden wall because the green reflects bad on his skin tone for the camera." I gripped the papers in my hand. The paper crinkled under my fingers. "He's at the house now?" I asked. "Yes, with your parents. They're setting up for a grand reveal livestream tonight. He's going to stream the demolition of your garden. He wants it to be a viral moment. A viral moment. Take me to my car," I said. My voice was deadly calm. I parked it at the long-term lot. "Aurora, what are you going to do?" Haley asked, starting the engine. "I'm going to give him his viral moment," I said. "I'm going to give him a show he will never forget." Haley drove me to the lot. I got into my own car. I placed the envelope of evidence on the passenger seat next to my laptop. I had the financial abuse. I had the identity theft. I had the fraud. The war had just escalated. It wasn't just a family dispute anymore. It was a crime scene. And I was the lead investigator coming to close the case. I drove toward my house. It was a 40-minute drive from the airport, but it felt like 5 minutes. My mind was racing, planning every step, every word. I turned off the main road and into my neighborhood. It was a quiet suburban street. Nice lawns, big trees. I worked hard to afford this neighborhood. I loved how peaceful it was. But as I turned the corner onto my street, the peace was gone. I didn't pull into my driveway. I parked 3 houses down, behind a neighbor's large van. I cut the engine and just watched. My house was lit up like a stadium. There were floodlights set up on the front lawn. There were cables running from the front door out to the yard. It looked like a film set. I saw 2 guys I didn't recognize carrying equipment in through my front door. Strangers, in my house. Then I saw it. Lying on the wet grass, near the curb, was my armchair. It wasn't just any chair. It was my grandmother's armchair. It was a vintage velvet wingback chair. It was the first piece of furniture I ever refinished. I had spent weeks sanding the wood and ruffle-stirring the fabric. It was my favorite place to read. It was thrown on its side in the dirt. One of the legs was sticking up in the air. A bag of fast food trash was resting against it. Something inside me broke. And then it hardened into concrete. They hadn't just moved my brother in. They were erasing me. They were taking my space, my memories, my comfort, and throwing it in the trash to make room for Tanner's ego. I grabbed my bag. I grabbed the laptop. I grabbed the envelope Haley gave me. I checked my phone. 6:45 p.m. Haley said the livestream was starting at 7 p.m. I had 15 minutes. I stepped out of the car. The evening air was cool. I smoothed down my blazer. I fixed my hair. I wasn't going to look like a victim. I wasn't going to look like a frantic, hysterical woman. I was going to look like the owner. I walked down the sidewalk. My heels clicked on the pavement. Click, 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 like a countdown. As I got closer, I could hear music pumping from inside my house. Bass-heavy, obnoxious music. In my quiet sanctuary, I saw my father come out the front door. He was carrying a box of my books, my classic novels, my first editions. He dumped them into a recycling bin by the garage. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I didn't stop. I didn't run. I just kept walking. I reached the edge of my driveway. My father looked up and saw me. His face went pale. He dropped the empty box. "Aurora," he stammered, you're not supposed to be back until Sunday." "Plans changed," I said. My voice was steady. I didn't look at the books in the bin. I looked him dead in the eye. "Move." "Now, honey," he started, putting his hands up. "Don't get upset. We were just doing a little reorganizing. Tanner has a big opportunity." I said move, I repeated. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. He stepped aside. He looked terrified. He had never seen me like this. He was used to the Aurora who apologized. The Aurora who fixed things. The Aurora who fawned. That Aurora was dead. She died when I saw my grandmother's chair in the mud. I walked up the front steps. The door was wide open. Inside, the house was unrecognizable. My furniture was pushed against the walls or gone entirely. Professional lights were set up on tripods. A green screen was partially set up in the hallway. And there, in the living room, was Tanner. He was standing in front of my hydroponic wall. He had a sledgehammer in his hand. He was talking to a camera that was mounted on a ring light. My mother was standing behind the camera, holding a reflector to give him better lighting. "What's up, guys?" Tanner shouted, using his fake influencer voice. "We are live. Tonight is the night. We are transforming this boring old space into the ultimate content house. And the first thing to go is this ugly plant wall behind me." He swung the sledgehammer lightly, tapping the glass tank. "Tanner," my mother hissed, pointing at the door. Tanner turned around. He saw me standing in the entryway. For a second the room went silent. The music was still thumping, but nobody spoke. Tanner grinned. It was a nervous, arrogant grin. "Oh, hey sis, you're back early, perfect, you can be in the stream. Chat, this is my sister Aurora, she's helping me out with the renovation." He pointed the camera at me. "Say hi to the fans, Aurora." I looked at the camera lens. I looked at the red, live light blinking. Thousands of people were watching. "Hi," I said. I walked into the frame. I stood right next to him. "This is perfect," Tanner whispered to me, covering his mic. "Just play along, act excited, we can make bank on this stream." I looked at him, I smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous smile. "I'm not here to celebrate, Tanner," I said, loud enough for the microphone to pick up clearly. "I'm here to evict you." I opened my laptop. I opened the envelope. The show was about to begin. "Evict me?" Tanner let out a laugh. It was a loud, fake sound that bounced off the walls of the living room. He turned his back to me and looked directly into the camera lens, flashing that signature bright white smile. He spent $3,000 on money I had loaned him, of course. "Guys, my sister is such a joker," he said to the livestream. He winked. "She's got a dry sense of humor. That's why we love her. Aurora, come on, tell the chat you're just roasting me. It's a prank, right? A welcome home prank." He reached out and grabbed my shoulder. His fingers dug into my blazer. It wasn't a hug, it was a warning. He was squeezing hard, trying to physically steer me out of the frame. "Just play along," he hissed in my ear, his voice low so the microphone wouldn't pick it up. "Don't embarrass me, there are 3,000 people watching." I looked at his hand on my shoulder, then I looked at his face. I didn't see a brother. I saw a stranger who had been picking my pockets for half a decade. I shrugged his hand off. I did it violently enough that he stumbled back a step. "I am not joking, Tanner," I said. My voice was clear. I projected it the way I did in board meetings. I wanted every microphone in the room to pick it up. "And this isn't a prank. I am the owner of this property. You are trespassing. And I am evicting you." My mother stepped out from behind the lighting rig. She was wearing her camera-ready outfit, a nice blouse and heavy makeup. She looked terrified, but her eyes were furious. "Aurora," she snapped. "Stop this immediately. You are tired, you just got off a plane, you aren't thinking clearly." She tried to step between me and the camera, waving her hands to block the view. "Cut the feed, Tanner, just cut the feed." "No," I said. I stepped around her. "Don't cut the feed. You wanted an audience, right? You wanted to show everyone the process of building your empire. Well, let's show them how you really funded it." I walked over to the large monitor Tanner had set up to read the chat. It was connected to his main computer tower. I placed my laptop on the table next to it. My hands were steady. I felt a strange, cold calm. I pulled the HDMI cable out of his computer and jammed it into the side of my laptop. The screen flickered. The image of Tanner's face disappeared. In its place, a giant, stark white spreadsheet appeared. The ledger, the font was size 72. It was impossible to miss. "What is that?" my father asked. He had been standing by the kitchen, holding a celebratory beer. Now he set the beer down. "Aurora, what are you doing?" "I'm showing the investors their return on investment," I said. I turned to the camera. I looked right into the lens. "Hello everyone," I said. "My name is Aurora. I am Tanner's sister. I am also his primary investor. Although usually investors get equity, I just get lies." I pointed to the screen. "Tanner tells you he's a self-made entrepreneur," I said. "He tells you he built this channel from nothing with his own grit and grind. He sells you merchandise about hustle culture." I scrolled to the top of the spreadsheet. "Let's look at the hustle," I said. "Item number 1, I read aloud. Sony Alpha Camera Kit. Date, August 12, 2020. Cost, $3,200. I looked at Tanner. He was turning a shade of red I had never seen before. "That's the camera filming us right now," I said. "He told you he bought it with money from mowing lawns." "He didn't, I bought it. Because he cried and told our mother he would never be happy without it." "Shut up," Tanner yelled. He lunged for the laptop. "Turn it off, you're violating my privacy." I slammed my hand down on the keyboard, blocking him. "I'm not violating your privacy. I paid for the privacy. I paid for the walls you live in. I paid for the clothes on your back." I scrolled down. "Item number 3, I continued, my voice rising just enough to cut over his protests. Emergency rent. March 2021, $6,800. I turned to the chat. The comments were scrolling so fast they were a blur of colors. "Wait, is this real? She brought receipts. OMG exposed. Self-made. More like sister-made. This is the best content he's ever posted. He told you he was living in a luxury penthouse because his brand was blowing up." I told the viewers. The truth, he was being evicted. He had 3 days to vacate. He called me weeping. He said he would be homeless, so I paid it. He promised to pay me back the next week. I looked at Tanner. That was 4 years ago. Where is my money, Tanner? It's coming, Tanner screamed. He looked like a cornered animal. I have a deal in the works, you know that. Why are you doing this? You're ruining everything. You ruined it yourself, I said. My father marched over to me. He grabbed my arm hard. That is enough, young lady. You are humiliating your brother. You are humiliating this family. Family, I laughed. It was a sharp, bitter sound. We aren't a family, Dad. We're a corporation. And I'm the only employee. I ripped my arm out of his grip. Let's talk about the car repairs, I said, scrolling down the list. Let's talk about the networking trip to Miami that cost $2,000. The one where he posted photos of him popping bottles at a club. I paid for those bottles. I was sitting in my office at 9 p.m. on a Friday night, working overtime, paying for him to pretend he was rich. You offered, my mother shrieked. You said you wanted to help. I didn't offer, I spun around to face her. You manipulated me, you told me he was depressed, you told me he was fragile, you told me if I didn't help him, his failure would be on my conscience. My mother flinched. She knew it was true. She had used guilt like a scalpel for years, carving pieces off of me to feed him. I kept a record, I said, pointing to the screen. Every single dollar, every single lie. I highlighted the bottom row. The total sum, $115,450. The number sat there on the big screen, glowing. $115,000, I said to the camera. That is what it cost to build Tanner Vance. He isn't a creator, he is a leech. Tanner was shaking. He looked at the chat. The tide had turned against him completely. The fans who worshipped him 5 minutes ago were now tearing him apart. Pay her back, bro. L major L unsubscribing. Fraud. You. You bitch, Tanner whispered. You jealous, ugly bitch. The room went silent. Excuse me, I said softly. You've always been jealous, Tanner spat. He walked toward me, his hands balled into fists. You're boring, you're a corporate drone. You have no personality. You see me shining, you see me making something of myself, and you can't stand it. You want to drag me down to your miserable level. Tanner, stop, my dad warned, but it was weak. No, Tanner yelled. She needs to hear it. No one likes you, Aurora. Mom and Dad tolerate you because you pay the bills, but nobody likes you. You're cold, you're rigid, you're alone. Look at you. You're 30 years old and you're alone in this big empty house with your stupid plants. He gestured wildly to my hydroponic wall. That's why we were going to tear it down, he sneered. To put something cool here, something with life. Not this sad little hobby of yours. My mother nodded. She actually nodded. He's just angry, she said to me, trying to smooth it over, but her eyes were cold. But he has a point, Aurora. You are very difficult to love. You make everything transactional. You keep score. I keep score because you keep stealing, I yelled. My composure finally cracked. The hurt flooded out. I bought this house so we could have Christmas here, I said, my voice shaking. I built this garden because it made me happy. And you came here, while I was away working to pay for your lifestyle, and you brought a sledgehammer to destroy the only thing I care about. It's just a wall, my father shouted. It's drywall and glass. Why do you care more about a wall than your own brother's future? Because the wall doesn't lie to me, I screamed back. Because the wall doesn't steal from me. Because the wall doesn't look me in the eye and tell me I'm unlovable while reaching into my purse. I took a deep breath. I smoothed my blazer. I looked at the camera one last time. This live stream is over, I said. And so is the Bank of Aurora. I reached for the laptop to disconnect it. Don't you touch that, Tanner lunged. He shoved me. I stumbled back, hitting my hip against the corner of the kitchen island. Pain shot down my leg. Did you see that? I shouted at the camera. He just assaulted me. I didn't touch her, Tanner lied instantly. She tripped, she's crazy, she's throwing herself on the floor. We saw it, Tanner, my dad said quietly. Whose side are you on? Tanner whipped around. We are on your side, honey, my mom said quickly, rushing to him. She stroked his arm. She provoked you, anyone could see that. She came in here looking for a fight. She turned to look at me, her face twisted with disgust. Are you happy now? She asked me. You've made a spectacle, you've ruined the evening. You are so selfish, Aurora. You have always been selfish. I stood up straight. The pain in my hip was throbbing, but it focused me. Selfish, I repeated. I have given you everything. I have given you a decade of my life. I have given you my savings. I have given you my sanity. You gave us money, my mother said dismissively. That's easy. You never gave us warmth. You never gave us support. Support is not letting your son rob you blind, I said. He didn't rob you, my mother screamed. He borrowed, families borrow, and now you are treating him like a criminal. He is a criminal, I said. Oh, stop it, Tanner groaned. I'm not a criminal, I'm late on some payments. Big deal. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I looked at the three of them, a united front. The gaslighting was absolute. In their reality, I was the villain. I was the mean sister hoarding her wealth, refusing to help the golden child. In their reality, tearing down my wall was a favor to me. I realized then that words would never work. I could show them a million spreadsheets. I could scream until my throat bled. They would never hear me. They were committed to the lie. But I wasn't just armed with a spreadsheet. I looked toward the front door. I had heard a car pull up a moment ago. I had heard a car door slam. I'm not the one who thinks he's a criminal, I said softly. What are you talking about? Tanner snapped. Just get out of the frame. I need to do damage control with the chat. I'm talking about the person who gave me the rest of the evidence, I said. The front door handle turned. The lock clicked. Everyone froze. Who is that? My mother asked. Did you call the police? Not yet, I said. The door swung open. The cool night air swirled into the heated, angry room. Haley stepped inside. She looked different than she had at the airport. At the airport, she looked scared. Now, standing in the doorway of the house that was currently being broadcast to the world, she looked like an executioner. Tanner's face dropped. Haley, I stepped back. I had fired the first shot with the ledger. I had exposed the financial abuse. But the war wasn't over. Haley was holding the nuclear option. You invited everyone to watch Tanner, I said, my voice deadly quiet. So let's give them the full show. I motioned to Haley. Come on in. The silence that followed was heavier than the sledgehammer on the floor. Evict me, Tanner laughed, but the sound was brittle. He glanced at the camera, then back at me. Guys, she's such a joker. Aurora, stop trying to ruin the vibe. We're creating content here. He reached out to grab my shoulder, trying to shepherd me out of the frame like I was a nuisance. I took a step back. I didn't shout. I didn't scream. I just looked at the lens of the camera, directly into the eyes of the 3,000 people watching. My name is Aurora Vance, I said clearly. I own this house. I did not give permission for this renovation. And I did not give permission for my brother to move in. I looked at the chat scrolling on the screen behind Tanner. It had been moving fast with emojis, but now it slowed down. People were typing things like, wait, is this real? She looks serious. This is awkward. Is this a skit? It's not a skit, I said, answering the screen. I opened my laptop and placed it on the small table they had set up for their equipment. I plugged the HDMI cable from their monitor into my computer. The screen behind Tanner flickered, and then my spreadsheet appeared. The ledger. What are you doing? My mother snapped. She stepped out from behind the lights. Aurora, stop this immediately. You are embarrassing us. You are embarrassing your brother. He embarrassed himself when he stole from me, I said. I scrolled to the top of the list. For 5 years, I said to the camera, I have supported Tanner. I paid for the camera filming this stream. I paid for the trip to Miami where he claimed he got this sponsorship. I paid his rent. I paid his legal fees. I started reading the numbers aloud. August 2020. Camera equipment $3,200. Never repaid. March 2021. Emergency rent to stop eviction $6,800. Never repaid. July 2022. Fake business investment $2,400. Never repaid. Tanner's face turned bright red. He tried to stand in front of the screen to block the numbers. Turn it off, he yelled. This is private family business. You're crazy. She's crazy, guys. I have the bank statements to prove every single line, I said, my voice cutting through his panic. Total stolen by my family, $115,000. The chat on the screen was exploding now. OMG, receipts, she brought receipts. L for Tanner, pay your sister back, bro. My father stepped forward, his face was dark with anger. That is enough, Aurora, you are ruining his career. Do you know how hard he has worked for this audience? You are being selfish. We are a family, we share. We don't share, I said, looking at my dad. I give, you take, that's not sharing, that's theft. We raised you, my mother screamed. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us, by humiliating us on the internet. I'm not humiliating you, I said. I'm just telling the truth. If the truth is humiliating, that's your fault, not mine. The room was thick with tension. The air felt heavy, like it does right before a thunderstorm breaks. Tanner was pacing back and forth, running his hands through his hair. My parents were huddled together, looking at me with pure hatred. They looked at me like I was a stranger. And then the front door opened again. Everyone turned. Haley walked in. She was still holding the car keys. She looked small in the doorway, but her eyes were fierce. She walked straight into the living room, into the harsh glare of the studio lights. "Haley," Tanner said, looking confused. "Babe, what are you doing here? Tell her. Tell her she's being crazy." Haley didn't look at him. She looked at me. She nodded once. Then she turned to face Tanner. "She's not crazy, Tanner," Haley said. Her voice was quiet, but in the silent room, it sounded like a shout. "Babe, don't start," Tanner warned. "Not now." "Don't call me babe," Haley said. She reached into her bag and pulled out the second set of papers, the ones she had shown me in the car. She walked up to the camera. Tanner tried to grab her arm, but she pulled away. She held the papers up to the lens. "My name is Haley," she said to the livestream. I was Tanner's fiancée, and I found these in his desk yesterday." She held up the credit card applications. "These are credit card applications," she explained, "in the name of Robert and Linda Vance." My parents froze. My dad blinked. "What?" "He opened 3 credit cards in your names," Haley said, turning to look at my parents. "He forged your signatures. He used your social security numbers. He maxed them out. $50,000 of debt in your names." My mother gasped. She put a hand to her chest. No, Tanner wouldn't do that. It's a mistake." "It's not a mistake, Mom," Tanner said, his voice cracking. I was going to pay it back. It was for the brand. I just needed a little capital to get things moving. Once the channel blew up, I was going to pay it all off, I swear." "You committed identity theft against your own parents?" I asked. I felt sick. Even after everything, hearing him admit it out loud was shocking. "I had to," Tanner shouted. "You stopped giving me money, you started asking questions, I didn't have a choice." "You had a choice," Haley said coldly. "You could have gotten a job." Tanner looked at her with betrayal. "You're supposed to be on my side." "I was on your side," Haley said. Tears started to fall from her eyes now. "I defended you, I loaned you money too, but then I found this." She held up the last piece of paper. "The lease agreement for the Range Rover. He leased a $68,000 car yesterday," Haley said. "And he signed Aurora's name." I stepped forward. I looked at the paper on the screen. There was my name, a jagged, fake scrawl. "That's a felony," I said softly. The room went dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the computer fans and the distant traffic outside. My father walked over to Tanner. He looked old. Suddenly, he looked very, very old. He took the credit card papers from Haley's hand. He looked at the signature. You stole my identity," my dad whispered. "I have an 800 credit score. I've worked 40 years for that score." "Dad, it's temporary," Tanner pleaded. "I was fixing it." "And you," my mother said, looking at the lease. "You forged your sister's signature. Tanner, you could go to jail for this." "Only if she presses charges," Tanner yelled, pointing at me. "She won't press charges. She's my sister, she loves me, she won't send me to jail." He looked at me, his eyes wide and frantic. He was banking on the old Aurora. He was banking on the Aurora who cleaned up the broken vase. The Aurora who paid the rent. The Aurora who fawned and fixed and smoothed things over. "Aurora, tell them," Tanner begged. "Tell them we'll work it out. Tell them to cut the stream." I looked at him. I looked at the brother I had loved. The brother I had protected. I saw a stranger. I saw a thief. I saw a parasite who would eat me alive until there was nothing left but bones. I looked at the camera. I looked at the chat. It was moving so fast now it was a blur. "I'm sorry, Tanner," I said. I picked up my phone. I dialed 3 numbers, 9-1-1. "Aurora, no," my mother screamed. She lunged at me, trying to grab the phone. "Put it down, don't you dare, he is your brother," I sidestepped her. I put the phone to my ear. "Hello," I said into the receiver. "I would like to report a fraud in progress, and a trespassing. I am at 424 Oak Street. The bomb had dropped, the explosion was here. And I was the only one standing in the blast zone, who wasn't afraid anymore. The minutes while we waited for the police were the longest of my life. The house was a cage of noise and hysteria. Tanner had scrambled to turn off the livestream, ripping the cords out of the wall, but the damage was done. Thousands of people had seen the confession. Thousands of people had seen the evidence. My mother was in full panic mode. She was pacing the living room, wringing her hands, alternating between begging me and screaming at me. "Call them back," she shrieked. Tell them it was a mistake. Aurora, you are destroying this family. How can you be so cruel? He is a boy, he made a mistake. He is 26 years old, I said, standing by the door blocking the exit. He is a man and he committed crimes. He stole from us, my father yelled at my mother. Linda, did you hear what the girl said? He put 50 grand on my name. We're going to lose the house. We can't pay that. We will figure it out, my mother yelled back. We always figure it out, but we do not call the police on our son. She turned to me, her eyes wild. Aurora, please, I will pay you back. I will take a second mortgage, just tell the officers to go away. You can't take a second mortgage, Mom, I said calmly. Your credit is ruined, Tanner ruined it. Shut up, Tanner screamed from the corner. He was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. Just shut up, you're enjoying this. You've always been jealous of me. You're jealous because Mom and Dad like me better. The words hung in the air. You're jealous because Mom and Dad like me better. It was the quiet part said out loud. The truth we all knew but never spoke. You're right, I said. They do like you better. They love you so much they let you become a criminal. They love you so much they helped you rob me. Their love didn't help you, Tanner. Their love ruined you. I saw the flashing lights reflect against the living room window. Blue and red, blue and red. They're here, Haley said quietly. She was standing by the window, her arms crossed tight over her chest. She hadn't moved since she dropped the papers. I opened the front door before they could knock. 2 officers stood there, a man and a woman. They looked serious. We got a call about a disturbance and fraud, the female officer asked. Yes, I said. I'm the homeowner. My name is Aurora Vance. That man inside is my brother, Tanner Vance. And that woman is his fiancée, Haley. She has evidence that he has committed identity theft and forgery against myself and our parents. I stepped aside to let them in. The moment the police walked into the living room, the energy shifted. My mother stopped screaming. She went instantly silent, her face pale as a sheet. My father sat down heavily on the sofa, looking at his hands. Tanner looked up. He looked like a trapped animal. What's going on here? The male officer asked, looking around at the lights, the cameras, and the sledgehammer still lying on the floor. He didn't mean to, my mother stammered. It's a misunderstanding, officer, just a family squabble. It is not a squabble, I said clearly. I want to press charges for the forgery of my signature on a vehicle lease. And I believe my father needs to file a report for the credit card fraud. The officer looked at my dad. Sir, is that true? My dad looked up. He looked at Tanner. Tanner was mouthing the word please. My dad looked at me. He looked at the ledger on my laptop screen. He looked at the wall Tanner had been about to smash, the wall of my house which I paid for, which I owned. He took a deep breath. Yes, my dad said. His voice broke. Yes. He opened accounts in my name without my permission. Dad, Tanner screamed. You're selling me out. You sold me out first, son, my dad said, tears leaking from his eyes. You sold us all out. The officers moved in. They asked Tanner to stand up. They put his hands behind his back. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut was the loudest sound I had ever heard. Click, click. You have the right to remain silent, the officer began. Mom, do something, Tanner yelled as they walked him toward the door. Don't let them take me. Aurora, tell them to stop. I'm sorry, I'll fix it. I'll delete the channel, just don't let me go to jail. I watched him go. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a deep, hollow sadness. But beneath the sadness there was relief. It was finally over. The bleeding had stopped. The door closed behind them. The silence that rushed back into the room was deafening. My mother turned to me. Her face was twisted into a mask of pure venom. I hope you're happy, she hissed. You just sent your brother to prison. You are evil. You are a cold, heartless bitch. I didn't send him to prison, I said. His actions sent him to prison. I just stopped paying for his ticket. Get out of my house, I said. My mother blinked. What? Get out, I repeated. Both of you, take your things, take the trash you brought in, and leave. I don't want you here. You can't kick us out, my father said. We're your parents. You're not my parents, I said. You're his accomplices. You stood there and watched him plan to destroy my home. You told him I wouldn't make a scene. You watched him steal from me for years and told me it was my duty. I walked over to the front door and held it open. I am making a scene now, I said. Leave. We have nowhere to go, my mother said. It's late. Go to a hotel, I said. Put it on a credit card. Oh wait, you can't. Tanner maxed them all out. It was cruel. I knew it was cruel. But I needed them to understand that the Bank of Aurora was closed. Permanently. My father stood up. He grabbed my mother's arm. Come on, Linda, let's go. "I'm not leaving," she cried. "He's right," my father said. He looked at me with a strange expression. It wasn't anger anymore, it was shame. "We shouldn't be here." They gathered their coats. My mother grabbed her purse. She stopped in the doorway and looked at me one last time. "You have no family left," she said. "I hope you enjoy being alone in this big house with your stupid plants." "I will," I said, "because for the first time in my life I'll be safe." I watched them walk to their car. I watched them drive away. Haley was still standing by the window. She looked at me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have told you sooner." "You told me when it mattered," I said. "Thank you." "I'm going to go," she said. "I need to. I don't know what I need to do. Figure out my life, I guess." "Go," I said gently. "Take care of yourself, Haley." She left. I was alone. I locked the front door. I slid the deadbolt. I checked the security camera feed. The driveway was empty. I walked into the living room. It was a mess. There were wires everywhere. The sledgehammer was on the floor. I picked up the sledgehammer. It was heavy. I walked over to the hydroponic garden wall. I looked at the basil. I looked at the tomatoes. They were green and healthy. They were alive. I put the sledgehammer down gently in the corner. I sat in my grandmother's armchair. I had dragged it back inside from the lawn before the police arrived. It was dirty, but it was still soft. I closed my eyes. The house was quiet, no music, no shouting, no demands. I took a deep breath. The air smelled like rain and wet soil. I was alone. And for the first time in 20 years, I wasn't afraid of what was going to happen next. 3 months is a long time. And it is also no time at all. It was a Tuesday morning. The sun was streaming through the windows of my living room. The light hit the water in the hydroponic tubes, making little dancing reflections on the walls. I was sitting at my kitchen island, drinking coffee. Black coffee. Simple. I looked around my house. It looked different now. I had repainted the living room. I chose a soft, warm cream color. The green screen was gone. The studio lights were gone. The content house vibe was erased completely. I walked over to my garden wall. It was thriving. The tomato plants were heavy with fruit. The lettuce was crisp and bright green. I picked a cherry tomato and popped it into my mouth. It was sweet and warm from the sun. My phone buzzed on the counter. It wasn't a panic call. It wasn't a demand for money. It was a notification from my lawyer. Update on proceedings. The message read, "Plea deal accepted. 3 years probation, restitution ordered." I swiped the message away. Tanner had taken a plea deal. He avoided prison time for the identity theft because my parents refused to testify against him in the end. But the fraud charges for the car stuck. He had a criminal record now. He was working at a warehouse, packing boxes. His influencer career was dead. The internet never forgets, and the clip of me reading the ledger had gone viral in a way he never intended. He was the laughingstock of the platform. My parents didn't fare as well. Because of the massive debt Tanner had racked up in their names, and because they tried to cover for him even after the arrest, they couldn't make their mortgage payments. The bank foreclosed on their house last month. They were living in a small, 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. My mother had tried to call me a few times. She left voicemails. Sometimes she was crying, saying she missed me. Sometimes she was angry, blaming me for their apartment. I never called back. I had changed my number, but she found a way to get messages to me through old family friends. I just blocked them too. It sounds harsh. I know it does. People say, but they're your parents. But I learned something in these last 3 months. I learned that biology is an accident. Family is a choice. I thought about Haley. We met for coffee last week. She looked better. She had gained a little weight back. She had been so thin from the stress. She broke up with Tanner the night of the arrest. She was working at a bakery now, saving up to go back to school. She was happy. We didn't talk much about Tanner. We talked about books. We talked about bread recipes. We were becoming friends, real friends, not just 2 women held hostage by the same narcissist. I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug in the sink. The water was warm on my hands. I had my money back, well, some of it. The court ordered restitution, so I got small checks every month from Tanner's wages. It would take him 50 years to pay me back the $115,000. But I didn't care about the money anymore. I had something more valuable. I had my life. I walked into the living room and sat in my grandmother's chair. I had had it professionally cleaned. It looked good as new. I opened a book. It was quiet. Before, silence used to scare me. Silence meant something was wrong. Silence meant my parents were angry or Tanner was plotting something. I used to fill the silence with noise, with work, with fixing things. Now silence felt like a warm blanket. I looked out the window. A bird landed on the feeder I had set up, a bright red cardinal. It looked at me, chirped once, and flew away. I smiled. I wasn't a victim anymore. I wasn't a bank. I wasn't a doormat, I was Aurora. And for the first time, that was enough. I want to talk to you directly for a minute. Yes, you, the person reading this story. Maybe you read this and thought, wow, her family was crazy. And you're right, they were. But maybe you read this and felt a little knot in your stomach. Maybe you recognize something. Maybe you have a brother who always needs just a little help. Maybe you have a mother who says, don't make a scene, when you try to defend yourself. Maybe you have a father who thinks your money is family property. Maybe you are the one who is always fixing things. The one who stays up late worrying about everyone else's problems while they sleep soundly. I wrote this story for you. I want you to know that keeping the peace is not worth your soul. If the price of your family's love is your financial security, your mental health, and your dignity, then the price is too high. You cannot buy love. I tried. I spent $115,000 trying. It didn't work. You cannot save people who do not want to be saved. I tried to save Tanner from reality for 5 years. All I did was help him dig a deeper hole. Setting boundaries isn't mean. It isn't cruel. It isn't selfish. It is survival. When I kicked my parents out of my house that night, I thought I was killing my family. I thought I was ending my world. But I wasn't. I was saving myself. I was cutting off a gangrenous limb so the rest of the body could survive. It hurts. I won't lie to you. It hurts to realize the people who are supposed to love you only love what you can do for them. But the pain of leaving is better than the pain of staying. The pain of leaving heals. The pain of staying just rots you from the inside out. Look at your life. Look at your ledger. Who is taking from you? Who is draining you? Who is making you feel small? You have the power to close the account. You have the power to change the locks. You have the power to say, no, it's scary. But on the other side of that fear is a garden. A garden that is green and quiet and yours. If this story resonated with you, if you see yourself in my struggle, please leave a comment below. Share your story. Let's talk about it. Don't let them convince you that you're crazy. Don't let them convince you that you're selfish. You are not an asset. You are a person. And you deserve to be safe in your own home. Please like this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. You are not alone.